Let me first say, to the extent that we made any errors or we ever foreclosed on anybody, I completely understand that the hardship that created. As I mentioned, we did go through an independent foreclosure review, and unfortunately there were some issues, very, very low rates relative to everybody else, but there were some issues, and we paid money to those people to make them whole, and I earnestly feel terrible for any mistakes at the bank. Let me comment on also that once a week I chaired an internal committee that dealt with customer complaints. So any complaint that went to our regulators, that went to a senator, went to a member of the House, or went to what we called came through those, we had a special group of people that reviewed every single one of those complaints, responded to all of your offices, and responded directly to the borrower. We also routinely had the OCC come in and monitor and test us and go through all those complaints. It was a very, very big concern because, as you can imagine, from both the FDIC and the OCC, when we took over IndyMac, the amount of complaints spiked dramatically. As I shared with you, the reverse mortgage business was not something we wanted to buy, that we agreed to buy that as part of an overall solution, that what we were really trying to do is create a regional bank, and that business really had no part of it. There were about $1.5 billion reverse mortgages that the bank owned. There were over $20 billion of reverse mortgages that we didn't own, that we serviced for third parties. And the majority of all those third parties were HUD-guaranteed mortgages. And as I pointed out, I think there's some very significant issues with the HUD program. One, as I've mentioned, is a problem with taxes and insurance, that if there's a shortage on taxes and insurance because somebody outlives their expectancy, that HUD forced us to foreclose. There's another problem called the non-borrower spouse, where if the spouse wasn't on the mortgage at the time, that you'd have to foreclose on the spouse. We discussed these issues with HUD. If I'm confirmed, I would look forward to discussing these with Dr. Carson and hope that HUD would seriously consider looking at these things. Although it's not under my responsibilities, I would share my concerns. These are government-guaranteed programs where we are foreclosing on senior citizens. And I can assure you nothing was more painstaking to me in the whole place, okay? And I will tell you, I can't talk about specific loans because of privacy, but there are certain things that were in the press. And the most troubling loan we had was actually to the Octomom, okay? And we worked very, very hard. That was a terrible situation, and we worked very, very hard to move her to another home that they could afford. But I can assure you that as chairman of the bank, I took these issues very seriously. It's not to say that we didn't have certain mistakes. There were mistakes. We regret those mistakes. As I mentioned, we had hundreds of thousands of delinquent loans. And just as an aside, when you talk about loan modifications, banks are highly incented to do loan modifications. Anybody who thinks that we made more money foreclosing on a loan than modifying a loan has no understanding of this. We were highly incented. Foreclosing on people is a very, very terrible thing to do, but it's also very costly to the bank. So we believed in loan modifications, and we were financially incented to offer them when we could. So thank you, Senator.
Thank you.